Hi there. This evening, Preston, Crawford, and myself, Daniel Acheson, will be reviewing a film of Gods and Men by Xavier Buffon. It's a French drama situated within a small community in North Africa, Algeria, and we start to see two very different religions and two very different groups of people living quite a harmonious lifestyle together. There's Christians and those of the Islamic faith, Muslims. And as you see them integrated together, we start to see the different roles of the monks kind of divulged as the film goes on. Now, at the beginning of the film, it's introduced with a verse. The verse is Psalm 82, 6-7. It says, "I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes." So here the opening scene of the film is very dramatic, and we actually see, as the film goes on, the director elaborate on this idea of men of faith dying like any other man, and in a kind of martyrdom type way. Within the community, these monks, their role is divulged slowly through the film, whether it be Luke, a doctor, Christian, the leader of the monk group, Christoph, who works the land and toils the land and has a role of farming. And we start to see a terrorist group rise up, as well as and then the government opposing this terrorist group in quite a violent way. And we start to see these two hostile groups coming against this harmonious community of two very different religions. And as this terrorist group starts to invade other towns in the areas and deaths start to occur, there begins this tension where these monks, who out of their own decision have gone to this town to help and provide service, are confronted with the reality of death. Now, there's this scene where the monks are sitting at the table having dinner, and one of them is reading an article that articulates the necessity of them trusting God through one's weakness, not striving for power and force, but accepting those around them in their weakness to portray the message of Christ. And that's what really undergirds this whole film is the power and strength that God provides these men despite this unfair treatment. And we see our terrorist leader, Fayatia, and Fayatia is actually threatens the monks within their monastery, and we start to see the response to this very strong, violent group come against these peaceful, loving monks. And we see the leader Christian actually quote the Quran back to him, saying, "Do not forget that your greatest friends are Christian priests and monks," as it says in the Quran. Now, as the film digresses, we see the pressure that comes upon these monks as people, even within their community, are starting to be killed just on the brink of their town, and they start to individually come to terms with death. And that plays a big part in the role. You can see that Bavol really explores the humanity in these monks and the prospect of death and how that influences their character growth. And they eventually come to a point where they all decide to stay despite the fear that is amongst them. By the end, 7 of the 9 monks are actually taken and assassinated. And we see a bravery as they are confronting death and walking up to the assumed place of death, which the film kind of insinuates, but we don't know for sure. The 3 key theological themes within this film is their consecrated, separated lifestyle. We see a lifestyle that is essentially these men that have chosen to separate from their original lives to pursue a lifestyle of Christ in love, like a missionary would, but with a more orthodox, religious, life. And that includes reading the Bible continually, praying in hymns. There's this real discipline and to their faith. We see the outward working within a community, the second key theological theme, and that's them showing love, whether it be monk Luke. He is providing medicine to the town, and at one point he's got 150 people that he sees a day. We have Christian, the leader, who goes within the community and actually relates to the Muslims and speaks their language and speaks to them about the issues that are coming to the town and how they can best provide safety for their people. There's this real love, and even the third point, the death for the name and furthering of Christ. They don't have to die. They didn't have to choose this lifestyle, but they've situated themselves in a place where they are threatened. It kind of drizzles into the next point, which is how the movie reflects a biblical worldview. And we see a faith and a strength that prevails in the face of fear and death. These monks are confronted with the prospect of death and torture as people are dying around them, and we're hearing of people being their throats being slit and people being brutally killed amongst just outside their community. There's this idea of sacrificial love. So the reason why these monks stay there, the quote goes that it paraphrased, but it is why would we leave? As a shepherd, why would we leave our sheep to wolves? Despite their differences, they see it. They have a love from God to help and protect these people. This sacrificial love opposes very much the natural worldview, the normalistic normalistic humanity, which is do what I can to live the longest. And the third point, dependency on the protection of God. We see these monks as death draws closer, they draw closer to God. They're continually in prayer. There's this one moment where one of the prayers of the monks, Christoph, who originally was struggling with the prospect of death, he says, you envelop me, hold me, surround me, you embrace me, and I love you. And it's a big moment in the film because we start to see one of the characters confronted with with death and his response to that. So, yeah, on to Preston for the next two questions.
How the characters are instrumental in unfolding the theology of the film. So in this film of Gods and Men, we see this journey of the monks in this pretty quiet village in northern Africa. And in the beginning of the film, they are tending to their tasks. They're farming. There's a doctor who meets the needs of the villagers. There's the general pastoral care for the people. We see them sitting on benches, speaking with the villagers, and just being a presence, a Christian pastoral presence in there. And then we also see them reading the scripture and meeting in the temple, singing hymns and worship, and being diligent in that sense. And then we see as pressure comes from this Islamic fundamentalist group, in neighboring villages there's murders of Croatians and other people groups that the Islams deem unworthy of the living in that area. And when the monks hear the news of it, they don't respond out of anger or vengeance, but they respond out of care for those families, and they pray for them. And so we see their theology, that they're so deeply rooted in the truths of the Word, of the principles of Christianity, and leaning on God rather than their own understanding, that when they're faced with these issues, they respond out of that. They respond out of love, of care, of mercy for their villagers and the surrounding villages. And even when the military presence of Northern Africa comes to them, they say, "We are here to protect you." The monks actually refuse it because they say that they're not fighting with the force of people. They don't want to be represented by a corrupt government, which is what that government was that was going to come and protect the village. They said, no, the Lord will protect us. And even to the point when they feel personally threatened, they still decide to stay there because they, at one point in the film, the head priest, Christian, is counseling another priest who is taking it very hard, that they're threatened with death, and the head priest says to him, you've already died when you came to be a monk, and now love and hope is eternal. That's what's sustaining us, and that's why we're staying and taking care of this village. They're the shepherds. Another time they say that these are sheep, these are not going to leave them for the wolves. So we see a deep-rooted theology that just gets stronger and stronger every time they're pressured by this Islamic group, even to the point that they're captured. They still don't fall. They still believe in what they do, which leads into the worldview that comes through, because this is based off a true story that happened in 1995 in this village in northern Africa. The filmmaker stays real true, I believe, to what the monks were achieving in their time of being that beacon of love, of mercy and grace, and properly expressing a Christian worldview. That they stayed diligent in reading their scripture, in meeting together, encouraging, and being a shepherd to that village. Even to the point of death, they still were leaning on what God had called them to do, instead of relying on their own strength and getting to safety or trying to flee. They chose to stay in the face of death. And so I think the worldview that comes from it is responding, one, from your convictions, that they were fully convicted of being Christians, that's what they believe so deeply. Two, responding out of love. A theme that happens throughout the film is talked about love and hope, and that those are eternal things, and that when you respond out of that, that's what people also respond to. We see in a confrontation between the monks and the Islamic fundamentalist group, the monk responds out of love and care for his people, and the leader of the Islamic group also responds in a positive way, and it actually ends in a non-confrontational meeting. And so we see through that the worldview would be respond out of love, respond out of what you believe deeply, and in this case it comes from that Christian conviction of I'm a Christian and I'm responding this way with grace, love, and mercy. So that's the worldview we get from it, of gods and men.